You're watching Coping with COVID-19 with Chris Manners. Today's special guest is Assessor Carmen Chu.
Hi, I'm Chris Manners, and you're watching Coping with COVID-19. Today, my guest is Carmen Chu. She's the elected assessor for the City and County of San Francisco and was most recently tasked with co-chairing the city's Economic Recovery Task Force. She's here to talk about how the task force is guiding the city's efforts through the COVID-19 recovery and reopening. Assessor Chu, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chris, for having me.
Can we begin by talking about the creation of the Economic Recovery Task Force and its purpose and role?
Absolutely. So, I think about our city's response in that very first month of COVID, and the truth is that everything moved so quickly. I can still remember when I was at the press conference that announced our state of emergency. And not only that, but very soon after, we were in a shelter-in-place scenario where I think many of us had never imagined that we would ever see in our lifetime, much less having to deal with a global pandemic. And, during that time, there was a lot that was going on in people's mind about generally health concerns and worries about what that meant for themselves and for their families. But almost immediately, I think that the city also began to feel what the economic impacts were of shelter in place and with business closure. Remember, at the time, all but just the essential businesses were open. And so very quickly, we saw a lot of businesses who were frankly worried about whether they could even come back and open at some point in time or how they would make it through. And we also saw pretty quickly a very sharp amount of job loss that happened in the city as well. And so we knew pretty soon thereafter that we really needed to start doing a lot of work to plan ahead for what economic recovery would look like. And so the mayor, alongside with the president of the board, Norman Yu, convened this task force really to try to get a number of people together to be thinking about what is it that the city can be doing now to start planning for economic recovery that is successful for the midterm, but also for the long term going forward. And so we have convened a group of people who are just amazing people who are contributing to our communities. And so we've got large and small businesses from a cross section of different types of industries and services from different neighborhoods. We have academia who are part of this task force, as well as different foundations, nonprofit service providers who are all part of the ecosystem that makes San Francisco special. So the task force is really convened to pull together ideas and thinking about how the city can not only help us facilitate moving back to a reopening scenario, but how is it that we should be pursuing different ideas and different policies to make sure that we're able to be successful during an interim period as well as for the long term in San Francisco.
Great. Now, we've all heard about the economic impacts the COVID-19 crisis has had across the country. Can you tell us what you've been hearing from task force members about their experiences in San Francisco?
I mean, I would say that just listening to businesses and to individuals and residents, it's been very dire. I mean, you can imagine that for a business who has been open for quite some time, they are still continuing to have to incur expenses like rent and other things. But meanwhile, they have absolutely no income for most businesses that are closed to be able to help offset that. Many of these businesses have taken loans out that they have actually secured with their own assets, like their homes. They've secured it so that if they can't repay loans, they'd have to potentially sell or do something with the other personal guarantees that they have. Locally here in San Francisco, we've also tried to respond with the local programs that we think could be helpful. Everything from the deferral of business taxes, business licenses, the creation of grants to support businesses and different community groups, to support workers and so on, to try to help ease the transition and the pain. But that being said, we continue to see pretty significant hardships for individuals, both from the business side as well as people who are now unemployed or who are faring not well from the public health side too.
So are there particular areas the task force is focusing on? And can you talk about them specifically?
Yeah, I think when we think about the larger economy, it's a wide and big economy. We have so much entrepreneurship and different types of activities and things it is that we do. There are also really important parts of our economy that make San Francisco special. Our arts, our culture, all of these things help to contribute to, I think, the vibrancy that is San Francisco. So when we think about economic recovery, it's broad, and it's also something that's going to be very nuanced depending from sector to sector. And so I think this is truly something that we keep in mind, which is that ultimately the pace at which we're able to open up economic activities is really tied to how we all individually take responsibility for making sure that we keep safe while we're doing that. So the way that we're thinking about economic recovery is about, how do we create in an interim period, short of having a vaccine or a health breakthrough, of an economy that is resilient. I think there is a strong recognition that even before COVID-19 hit, that the economy wasn't doing great for everyone, right? A lot of people were left behind, frankly, from the last economic cycle, or were not just faring very well. And so one of the things that we're thinking about is how do we think about San Francisco's future? What are emerging sectors? How do we create more equity? How do we create more opportunities for all of our communities to be able to thrive going forward? So we really are intentional about wanting to think about policies that help to build San Francisco better, actually, than where things were before. Some of the areas where we think that we want to be putting our efforts around are on a few major buckets. So we definitely want to continue to do work to support jobs and businesses. We definitely want to continue to think about economic development and how it is that we allow for the right kind of growth in our economy. We want to make sure that we're focusing on our vulnerable communities. So truly thinking about, who are the folks that have been most impacted? How do we make sure that when we think about the investments for the future, that economy includes success for those individuals and communities as well? And finally, we also want to think very intentionally about how do we support arts, hospitality, culture, entertainment. This is a big part of San Francisco. People come from all around the world to visit our beautiful city because they recognize not only the natural landscaping that is beautiful, but also the vibrance, the warmth of our communities, the culture that we're able to share here, the food that we're able to provide, the festivals, concerts, all of these things that make San Francisco so special. And at the same time, these are exactly the types of things that are probably not going to come back very quickly.
As our city is beginning to reopen, what's the task force doing to help revive local businesses and employment?
We really want to make sure that the on-the-ground experiences that businesses have, the common sense kinds of things that they might be able to do, are able to be incorporated with our public health officials. I think aside from that, we're also working very hard to try to find different solutions that allow businesses to be able to operate more flexibly. And so you probably have heard that the city is opening up outdoor dining very soon. And not only that, but that we've also created and launched the Shared Spaces program. This really allows for businesses to be able to utilize either the curbside space, street space potentially, and sidewalk space, so long as they allow for path of travel for their businesses.
Yeah. Letting businesses use outside spaces is a great idea, especially since we've learned that being outdoors is safer. So what's next after reopening? What are some lessons we've learned, and how can we create a better economic environment in the city?
Yeah, I think that is such a huge question, because I think, all of us are very much thinking about social equity. And I think that there is a lot of opportunity for us to be thinking bigger, better, and more inclusive, and creating more opportunities for our communities who have been left behind. In particular, for our Black community in San Francisco, we know that this is something that we want to focus on and want to make sure that we're actually creating a better system going forward.
Oh, I totally agree. So finally, if somebody or small business is interested in learning more about the Economic Recovery Task Force, where would they be able to find additional information?
Well, I'm glad you said that. We definitely we've heard from so many people from across the city. So first off, I want to thank all of the folks who have responded to us. But the place where you would want to go is our website. So you would find that at one San Francisco, all spelled out in one word, .org, /COVID-19-recovery. And so that is our website. That's actually where we keep all of our task force information, including our meeting agendas, our minutes, a video recording as well, so that you can keep up to date. There's also an email and survey that you can fill out there where you can share with us some of your thoughts.
Well, that's great information. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Assessor Chu. Thank you for the time you've given us today.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. Stay safe.
Oh, you too. Well, that's it for this episode. We'll be back with more pandemic-related information shortly. You've been watching Coping with COVID-19. For SFGovTV, I'm Chris Manners. Thanks for watching.